Hello everyone, Anna from Savvy Cat Realty speaking to you today about the real estate market in the first semester of 2022. I thought it was important to make this update as things are moving faster than I had anticipated, and I was anticipated things to move fast, so that does say a lot. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about the numbers that have come out in the meantime. I do have an article about my early year overview for 2022 that the link is going to appear somewhere over here, and you can go and check it out to see the numbers I'm referring to. In the meantime, the updated numbers from SAF and real estate and the Statistic Institutes of Portugal have come out, and I thought it was important to release this video because the inflation has been scarily fast and high. So recently an article has come around saying that according to the numbers of the Statistics Institutes of Portugal, in the first trimester of 2021 there had been general inflation of 12.5% on the real estate market. So that is a lot, and that is particularly concerning because that is not the case for the rest of the economy. So recently also an article has come around from the Economic Journal that is showing you a graph of a comparison between the salary fluctuations and minimum salary increases in Portugal to the rental market prices. And you can see that things are getting very unsustainable for locals, and prices that are currently being practiced in Lisbon. In Lisbon, I was expecting this to happen, but in Porto, it's starting to be the case too. And I honestly wasn't expecting, I knew that the prices in Porto were going to rise, but I wasn't expecting them to rise this fast. So basically in the first and second trimesters of 2021, the prices have risen a lot in Porto. I'm not going to give you a specific number because the numbers aren't out, the numbers from the Statistics Institute. You just have the overall numbers for all Portugal. But we work with both rentals and sales, and the rental prices are quite surprising. And I think this happened for a number of reasons. One is, of course, the expected influx of foreign coming in due to the end of the pandemic. There was a lot of people that were planning to move that only started moving now because they now started to feel comfortable with the pandemic slowing down. But another factor has come around that I didn't, of course, predict, and I think it wasn't a good thing to predict. That was the war in Ukraine. And the fact is, Portugal is a very attractive destination within Europe because we are on the opposite end of the war. And on top of that, we are a very safe and neutral country. And a lot of people are coming here to invest and live from the regions affected around the war zone. And that led to a huge influx of tenants. And on top of that, we also have the immigration from Brazil. Portugal had always had a very strong relationship with Brazil, and the immigration from Brazil is nothing new, and it comes in waves. But waves are definitely coming now. And this year, the numbers have been rising again. And the immigration from Brazil can be particularly problematic because of the way that things work in Brazil. And I am particularly qualified to talk about that because I also have investments and inheritances in Brazil, and I'm also a landlord in Brazil. And in Brazil, because of the social inequality that is very, very big, and it's a huge disparity, you have this culture where the low classes hate the high classes and the high classes hate the low classes, which generates some problems when it comes to rental. So in Brazil, it is not uncommon for tenants to destroy the apartments. And to counter this, it is also very common to be requests. Usually we have three types of rental contracts in Brazil. You have the rental contracts with a guarantor, you have the rental contracts with a financial or real estate guarantee, and you have the rental contracts on which you pay a year ahead. And this is the norm there. But it's completely different here in Portugal. So here in Portugal, you have the rental law is that you are not allowed to pay more than 3 months ahead by law. And you then have, of course, the security deposit, and there is no limit on that. But realistically, the security deposit is usually no more than 2 months rent, and it's usually just 1 month rent. So you are not expected to pay, or you are not supposed to pay more than 5 months rent, and that's already putting things at a high scenario. Usually it is between 3 and 5 months rent that you are expected to pay when you come into the new rental. But because of all this situation in Brazil, and because of the high immigration in Brazil, what is happening is some of the lower classes that come have brought their habits and do the same thing here and destroy apartments and traumatize landlords. And the high classes come in and they are used to these things, and so they are willing to pay a year ahead. And this is, of course, problematic in both ways, because if you destroy the apartment, the landlord is traumatized and they will want a lot more guarantees, and it will be they will be very cautious when renting. And if you pay a year ahead, that is completely out of the norm, even completely out of the law here in Portugal. That is also a problem, and it is not possible for locals. For locals, it is completely unthinkable to pay a year ahead. And it's honestly not advisable, even from a real estate advisor perspective, because of the way the court systems work here in Portugal. The small claims court is kind of a bureaucratic thing more than anything else, and it's not that functional at all. So unless we are talking about values over 5,000 euros, it is really not worth it to go through a small claims court, and it takes a really, really long time. And that's the case for both scenarios. So that's the case for both the tenant and the landlord. So if you're a tenant and you pay for a year ahead, and for some reason the landlord doesn't comply with something, or isn't a good landlord and gives you problems and you want to leave, you will have a very, very hard time getting your money back. So you are basically stuck there. So for all of these reasons that I had just described, the rental market is a mess, and it's rising very fast, and it's completely unsustainable for locals. And local people have been either renting from people that are completely unaware of the market changes, or moving out of their cities because they have absolutely no other way around it. And it's a free market. So unless the government starts making restrictions and regulations around these kind of things, as long as there's people willing to pay, it's not going to change. So this video is a bit of a warning to give people a bit of insight of how the situation is in Portugal and for locals. and a bit of a plead to please be aware of the values and the number of rents ahead that you pay, and try to be conscious. I know it can be hard because there is so much more demand than it is supply, and people are a bit forced to do this kind of things. And even with our clients, we are completely against paying this many months ahead, and yet it has happened at least once, even though it was something we did not advise. So I understand, I really do, but be careful on what you get into and try to avoid these situations as much as possible. In regards to the real estate market, this is more or less expected, and the inflation isn't being as fast, but it's definitely happening. In Lisbon, the data of the first trimester shows a very, very slight decrease on prices, but that's something I was also already predicting, because Lisbon was completely it was way too high, it was unsustainably high, and it wasn't possible realistically for it to keep rising, so that was pretty predictable. On the real estate side of things, the prices, especially on new construction, are rising still, but not at such a fast rate. However, it is now common to see new construction in Lisbon going for 8k per square meter, 10k per square meter, which is, in my opinion, a bit absurd, but it comes down to the cost of the initial plot plus the rising cost of construction. So I do understand where it comes from. I just don't understand how it's possible that a city where the average wage is something like 1,500 euros to have 8 to 10k per square meters real estate prices. So you can understand that is not very sustainable, but it is what we are having. So obviously locals are worried, and salaries and the economy is not rising nearly fast enough to accompany this very fast inflation of real estate prices. It is like everything, it has its downsides and its upsides. Of course, the people that are bringing this economic power are also making investment and making the economy move in Portugal, and that's of course a positive. But things need to move slower. I think it's very important for Portugal to have this kind of foreign investment, but it needs to be done more sustainably, and prices can have this kind of fast inflation. So if we have a 12.5 or 12.1, something like that, increase in prices in real estate country-wise in the first trimester of 2021, well, we have 4 trimesters on the year. It would be almost a 50% increase if the rate keeps like that, and that's obviously not sustainable, and I definitely hope that's not the case. I think it would be impossible to be the case, but things definitely need to slow down a bit, and buyers need to be a bit more aware. I have a video about that, about how the real estate market works here in Portugal, and you can check it out here. But it is fairly unregulated and a bit of a jungle. So be careful on who you work with. There is definitely good agents out there. Just make sure you have all the information on your side and you know exactly what you are getting into, so you don't end up overpaying for things, because that's not good for everyone. It's not good for you who are spending more money than you should, and it's definitely not good for the locals because it brings an unsustainable inflation rate. So this video was a bit negative, but it is the current reality. I have the policy on my company Savvy Cat Realty is very much to fight these kind of things, and we try to be as sustainable as possible, both from a cultural, economical and environmental point of view. I'm currently working on developing a sustainable construction package with a builder specialized on sustainable materials that actually costs more or less the same as regular construction. as I noticed that is definitely a important trend. And if you want to work with us, feel free to visit our website www.savvycatrealty.com. Like I said, we work with both rentals and purchases. I work from a buyer perspective, and we always give all the information to our clients. We work with the whole market, both private and agency, and we leave nothing else. We'll give you all the information. For the rental packages, you can purchase them directly on our website. For the purchase processes, we do require you to have initial advisory call with me. That does have a cost, but that cost is deducted from the package price. So it is just to filter the people that show up. And I do have usually bookings, and you usually are able to book from a week to the other, but I usually have the weeks full. So that is all for today. I hope this is helpful and informative, and feel free to reach out and leave your comments. We always try to come back to everyone, and I see you all again soon. Bye!